talks about when Adam sinned, sin entered the world. Adam's sin brought death, so death spread to everyone, for everyone sinned. Amen. So this verse is talking about the one sin that Adam committed in the Garden of Eden. Just because of that one sin, everyone sinned. Meaning, say for example, if you had a guy called Fred, like Fred has never been outside, he's been in his room. Let's just say that Fred has been in his room like all his life. He's 20 years old, and this guy has never been outside. He's never watched TV, nothing. The Bible is saying that because of Adam's one sin, Fred also sinned. So meaning that sin was a nature. Sin was something that we were born into. Sin is not something that we commit, then we become sinners. For example, let me give you a quick example from Uncle Bing. Let's say I had a master CD and I wanted to make a copy for Shechina. So Shechina wanted like a copy of my CD which I had. So let's say I burned the CD onto the computer, then ripped that CD which is on the computer and burned it onto the new CD to get to Shechina. Now let's say on the main copy CD, there's a scratch on track 2. Because I'm copying everything from the first CD onto the second CD, because there's a scratch on the first CD, there will also be a scratch on the second CD as well. It doesn't matter how clean the new CD, the second CD might be. The second CD might be very clean, but the fact that I'm transferring everything from track 1 onto track 2, when she kind of plays the track 2 on her CD, she will also experience a scratch on track 2. So it's nothing to do with the new CD. It's simply because what was copied from the master CD onto the second CD, I copied literally everything. And it's the same thing with us. We were born from Adam. What I mean is that Adam was our first parents, i.e. the first kind of us. And we inherited the nature which Adam had. It's the same thing with us, i.e. The Bible talks about spirit gives birth to spirit and the flesh gives birth to flesh. It's the same thing with colors. A black parent will give birth to a black child. It's the same thing, and that is what happened with us. There's a statement I want to make, and that statement is: a person does not become a sinner because he sins. Have you got said that? Yeah. A person does not become a sinner because he sins. Let me repeat that. A person does not become a sinner because he sins, but rather commits sin because he is by nature a sinner. So normally what people think right now is that, say I stole from the shop. So because I stole from the shop, oh my gosh, you stole, so now you're a sinner. That's the current mindset. But we need to understand that we commit sin because it's in us to commit sin. Our nature, which we have, is a sinful nature. That is why we commit sin. Because remember Fred, who's been in his room for his whole life, the Bible is calling him a sinner. But this guy has not committed any sins. It's simply because he was born in sin. Amen. So yeah. So we do things due to what is inside of us. So when the Bible when Jesus talks about, remember Jesus said nothing outside a person can defile them. I don't know if from Mark. Let's go back to Mark. Mark 7:18, I believe. Mark 7:18. Yeah, so Mark 7:15. Mark 7:15. Sorry, yeah. Jesus is saying that nothing outside a person can defile you, but it's what's inside of you that defiles you. So let's relate what Jesus says to this nature. For example, if you have a guy, yeah, this guy has a nature of. So let me track back. Sorry, let me track back. Sorry. If Jesus said that nothing outside the person can defile you, i.e. nothing outside of you can make you bad, in the same way, we can also say nothing outside a person can make them good. But it's what's inside of them that determines whether they're good or not. You agree with that? If you agree, just say type yes or whatever. So in the same way that nothing outside the person can defile them, in that same way, nothing outside the person can also make you good. Okay, I said, in the same way that Jesus said that nothing outside a person can defile them, person, what inside the person, I'll explain what I mean. Alright, so I talked about the nature of man and how the nature that we have in us is a sinful nature, okay? So in that person is a sinful nature. So that is what is inside that person. And Jesus said that it is what is in you that defiles you. So that person is defiled. I hope you know what the word defile means. Yeah, so the nature in that person is what defiles that person. Say, for example, a non-believer, he has not been saved. So in him is a sinful nature. Let's say this guy does good. Let's say he gives to charity. Yeah. What are the good things? He doesn't smoke. He doesn't drink. He gives to charity. Now, all those are good factors. But Jesus is telling us that all those good factors does not make him good. But it is what is inside of him, i.e. the nature in him, that is what determines whether if he's defiled or not defiled. So when I talk about something outside of you and something inside of you, what basically means is that, for example, you might not be sinning. So this is something that is outside of you. For example, this guy who has the sinful nature in him, but then he gives to charity. He gives. Oh, I don't know what that smiley face means, but yeah. So let me repeat again. Maybe not. Let's say this guy, he gives to charity and he doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink or stuff like that. But the nature in him is a sinful nature. Now Christ is saying that the factors outside of him giving to charity, it's not those things that determines whether this guy is defiled or not, but it's the nature in him. So in the same way, is it making sense, by the way? Someone can't hear me. Guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing well.
Okay, because I think Karen cannot hear me. Yeah, so in the same way, now let's take a believer. Let's take a believer. The Bible talks about. Well, that's very good. Austin just said that. Yeah, you look can see that. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so let's take a believer. Now the Bible talks about believers. We have the nature of God in us. Now let's relate the same outside and inside. The Bible's saying that. Let's say, for example, let's say Fred. Now Fred has been saved. Fred has the nature of Christ in him. Now the Bible is saying that if Fred does good, if he gives to charity, if he doesn't drink, he doesn't go party, I don't know, he doesn't do bad stuff, he just does good. The Bible is saying that the stuff that he does outside of him does not determine whether if he's defiled or not. But it's the question of what is the nature in him. Is he saved? So that's what when Jesus said that nothing outside the person can defile you, but it's rather what is inside of you that defiles you. So that's what Jesus meant right there. Nothing outside the person can defile them but by going into them, but rather it is what comes out of the person that defiles them. Amen. So I want to concentrate on us guys, like as in people, I believe we're all saved. So I want to talk about the nature in us, so that we can understand what is in us. Because when you look at an unbeliever has a sinful nature in him, meaning that he does not have to force himself to sin. A non-believer has a sinful nature in him. So it's in him to do bad, it's in him to sin. He doesn't have to force himself to sin. I don't know if anyone has heard an unbeliever saying, "Oh snap, I'm trying to force myself to drink, or I'm trying to force myself to be addicted to sex or whatever." It's odd, because the thing is that no unbeliever forces himself. There's no unbeliever that has to force himself to sin. So in the same way that a non-believer does not have to force himself to sin, when we look at a believer should not have to force himself to live like Christ. We believers, for example, Christ tells us that we should do good. We should relate to him. But the thing is that most believers, they have to force themselves to read the Bible. We have to force ourselves to pray. Or is it just me that experiences that? There are some believers, or most believers, they have to force themselves to live godly. So there's a question mark, because if Christ is saying that the nature in us is a Christ-like nature, and we automatically do what is in us, then the believer shouldn't have to force themselves. You shouldn't have to force yourself to do godly works. It was only the children of Israelites that had to be forced to obey the commandments, because at that time they had a sinful nature in them. God understood that these guys cannot live like I want them to, because it's not in them. It's not in them to live like how I want them to live. So I'm going to force them from the outside. I'm going to give them commandments. I'm going to give them laws which they have to follow. Amen. And I'm glad someone brought up the verse, if you love me, you will keep my commandments, or